clear snapshot of where everything is at right now. Rather than go through it line by line tonight, I'll keep it brief and just say I'm here if you have any questions, or if there's anything you'd like me to dig into a little bit more. If there's a specific project or section you want me to talk through, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'm happy to open it up for questions.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
In the spirit of full transparency, I'd like to ask you, whose direction was the Memorial Circle site plan design drafted? The plan that was dated January 6, 26, that included that big round plaza?
That was me.
Okay, the reason I'm bringing that up, Councilor McHugh and I have been doing a lot of research, reaching out to the community, and there's not a lot of community support for the excessive cost and scope of that huge plaza. Everyone is for a big memorial, but the funding is the issue. And in addition to just reaching out to community members, we reached out to 5 members of the original local planning committee, and their comments, I'll just read their comments verbatim. In my mind, I never heard it spoken of or intended to be a large item in the DRI funding project for Vets Field, talking about the Veterans Memorial. Another comment, I didn't think the Veterans Memorial portion of the project was that large. The large portions were splash pad and pickleball. Actually don't remember the plan as part of the project, although I did hear about it later. Didn't know it was part of the DRI. Next comment, I can't speak for the others, but I did not receive any communication after our 2 or 3 planning sessions. And thanks for bringing this to my attention, appreciate your efforts. 2 other members were reached by phone, which I don't have a quote, and they also shared that the scope and scale of the Veterans Memorial enhancement was never intended to be this large. I personally have spoken about it. I have concerns about how much we're spending, especially because we can anticipate the bathhouse is going to be, I believe, a little more than the original estimate, as most of the projects have been underestimated. And in your monthly project, I saw you said, I'm sorry, the department has outlined potential phasing considerations and funding implications should council wish to modify or stage project components. And I would love to talk about this more. I mean, you all know where I stand. So anyway, and I want to thank you for that 30-page report. As soon as I opened it, I said, whoa, that was too big to put together and almost too big to read. But
My goal was to make sure you guys had everything you could possibly
yes,
need.
appreciate
so that it's not kind of a regular,
yeah.
kind of give you everything so that you have a good snapshot of where everything is.
I think it was well done.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to piggyback on what Janet said, I think the DRI has always been, community-led, collaborative. When the DRI committee was formed, it was a group of community members to decide how these resources would be allocated. And we have had so many changes since the inception of that, right? Like, we've had new councils, we've had a new city manager, we had different mayors. Like, there's been a lot of moving parts. And so I can understand too how visions have shifted and evolved through the course of this. And I know, I thank you for sending me the probable construction cost as part of the 30% estimate. And after we kind of clarified that the specific items relating to the F-16 project with the Afterburner Committee, that they were not going to be part of the DRI, those pieces. And so they're still in there, and they were still in the report, and they're still in the total funding. But I'm guessing once CNS starts to go toward their next step, that will come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little cost breakdown just because I learned a lot about engineering this morning, and how I was trying to understand how these costs kind of come to be, and the contingencies and the bid contingencies and the add-ons, right? So I kind of broke down, knowing that the Vets Memorial as it stands, including the plane bits, which are coming out, right? That estimated cost is $637,364, which is almost as much as the splash pad. It's almost as much as, I don't have the number, they're on a different page. The pickleball courts and the tennis courts are the tiny part, right? They're the kind of more manageable. We're resurfacing, we're taking out nets, we're putting in new nets. Ta-da, right? It's kind of the,
Pickleball's
Mhm.
109,860.
yes. And so like the project itself, like the materials were like 74, right?
The
And then
splash pad construction is nearly the same price as the Veterans Memorial expansion.
Yes.
But all four of those were in the original
Yes.
DRI and SWIP.
Absolutely, all four of those
I
projects.
believe, honestly, to piggyback a little bit off of what Janice said, was part of the local planning committee, it wasn't part of the local planning board. Am I correct in saying that?
What part?
So they wouldn't have known,
The DRI committee?
right, not the same as the planning committee for the city. So the local planning committee for the DRI is the one that picked the projects and got that all through the state.
And that's who we reached out to.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought you said the planning board.
No,
I thought you said the planning board.
No,
No.
we reached out to the original members on the
Perfect.
local
Yeah.
planning committee for
I
the
see
DRI.
what you're saying.
Yeah. But so as we're trying to secure this additional funding, right, as we're trying to apply, and you guys have done a great job looking for all this additional funding, and I, kind of broke down, I had asked for the first 2 pages of I have page 3 of 3, I know there's 3 pages for the Vets Park improvements, and to see what the contingencies would be. I kind of assumed CNS does the same thing for all of their stuff. So I did put this down on paper and I brought copies. The math isn't exactly work out, so I'm not exactly sure how it got there, but taking into consideration, I do have copies for everybody. Taking into consideration, I know you can't see this, huh? The Veterans Memorial with the plain items included versus without the plain items, the cost is significantly different because not only is it the cost of the project and the materials, but also the contingencies, the add-ons, the engineering fees. So when I did my math, with the plain items, the Veterans Memorial comes out to about $614,581. The CNS estimate is $637, so there's a discrepancy. That is probably an engineering thing, I don't know. Taking the plain items out of that brings it down to $324,673, assuming that they do the same thing, the contingencies on all of their projects. That's a significant difference. And so do we take that out of the, once we physically take that out, does that mean we need to get less funding? Because it's not as much. Because the Afterburner Committee is doing all their fundraising, right, for the plane and the plane
I'm
related
sorry,
items.
what's your question?
So when will we be taking out the plane related items from the estimate?
Unless council wants to pass some resolution changing things, we're gonna move forward with what I've been given. So if you guys wanna change something or have the public open it or anything like that, I just do what, I've been tasked to do.
Oh, yeah, for
Found what
sure.
the DRI portions are, we walked through with CNS, not just the Vets Park, but on all the other places.
Mhm.
Things were discussed during that time.
Mhm.
Helen was there in the time that we walked with the engineer, looking at the different areas. So
Recently?
no,
Like as part of the
the
afterburner
original.
committee?
You said when was the original?
Mhm.
And Kyle said
Intercapacity as part of the afterburner committee?
Just in a capacity as previous mayor that as part of the DRI program.
All right, because we're gonna need to talk about it, because I still feel like $300,000 is way too much when the original intent of that grant award was for the recreational aspects for the residents of the city.
Well, that's not entirely accurate.
Right.
The Veteran Memorial is a project in here.
Yeah.
Not initially.
Yeah, it is. It is on our site.
it's in the.
Oh, yes, I
The
understand,
memorial.
It is
but
on
going
our
back to the very original, nothing was mentioned, and
I
then it
mean-
was added,
How many people were on the original committee?
um,
So of the 20, you have 5,
yeah.
right? That gave you quotes, not liking whatever's happening now. I mean, I
Can we
think
talk
this is
about
a
it, though?
political thing
100%.
for you guys to
Yeah.
discuss.
Right.
So
Yeah.
for me and my presentation on the DRI, I feel like this is not really, I
Okay.
mean this no disrespectfully,
Yeah.
it's not really my part,
All right.
right? I am just my job is to implement what the city has asked me to do, and that's what I'm
Okay.
doing.
So besides the Veterans Memorial, any other discussions about DRI projects? Because we've talked an awful lot about this
Well,
continuously, multiple emails. phone
Well, we
calls,
have,
texts,
yeah, and
council
so,
meetings.
and so on the memorial, the fees and the cost related to the afterburner committee items are being fundraised by the Afterburner Committee,
Correct.
not as part of the DRI project, right?
Yes,
Correct.
Okay, okay. So when we are looking for the supplemental funding, is that supplemental funding based on including that as it stands in CNS? Or is that going to be modified to take that out of this?
That'll be taken out.
That'll
So
be
any
taken out.
supplemental funding grant request moving forward will not have that. Beyond the 30% design,
Mm-hmm,
it will not have that.
mm-hmm, okay,
So when we go to 60%, the next amount, the next threshold, when we have a thicker document, more comprehensive plan,
mm-hmm,
you'll see those costs removed. The
Okay.
airframe, as well as the pedestal costs are removed.
and the
Now,
pavers,
yes,
Yeah.
and to put a very, not to put too fine of a point on
Sure.
it, but I am the one that told him to design that with the anticipation that we have synergy out of these projects with DRI.
mm-hmm,
I've spoken about this at length, multiple council meetings last year. I discussed this time and again. When we are designing this element for the Veterans Memorial, if we can design it in such a way that it can accommodate the plane, that saves us ultimately down the road from to go back and find a place for this plane, right? Because that's where it's designed, that's where it should go, that's, it's part of the Veterans Memorial. So trying to mitigate those costs with everything from fundraising to donations and everything we're trying to do, with the OAC, that's all for the logistics, transportation, assembly, establishment, all of that stuff with the plane. But what I'm asking is, I think that it would behoove this city, and I know your position, and I know your support of Rob Lynch's position. And my position is, I'd spend $3 million on a Veterans Memorial. There are people literally dying right now as we speak in this country, and we can't even allocate tax funds for a Veterans Memorial?
Well,
I'm
maybe-
sorry, but unfortunately, unless this council votes and says, Kyle, we gotta get rid of that altogether, then I will abide by that, as I have always said. But that's a council action you folks have to take and vote on.
I don't think it's fair to paint our concerns that we don't support this. I don't think that's super fair. But when we're looking at this project that we've been trying to get off the ground, you have other municipalities, and it's not your fault. You came into this, right? Like,
Oh, no,
you
we're fixing
picked it up, right? You're
Yeah, we're
fixing it, and you're
fixing it, yeah.
taking it and going with it, which is awesome. And I know it's a long process. But knowing that we are short on funding, we have kids, we have so many children and families in our community that have no outlet. The splash pad, the pool upgrades, and the pickleball, yes, all that. But and the Veterans Memorial is important. But as it stands, it's such a large chunk, and it's sort of, cumulatively, it's all holding up the process, right? Because we don't have enough money now. Time has gone by, time costs money, you lose time, things get more expensive. And so now, we're here, and does anyone else on the council have thoughts about this besides Janet and I?
I think the way that it's going, if it goes down to what we're taking out of the CNS estimate, there's no reason why it should be half the cost of the splash pad and a little bit more than the pickleball court, since we're just
So you're kind of saying it'll get there, it'll get to that, to a more, thoughts? Is that-
Well, it's,
Yeah.
he's saying that once the new estimate comes out, this is coming out.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Okay.
that's my feeling.
I think my feeling is that these guys stepped into this and was already
Mhm.
way behind.
Mhm.
Let them do their jobs.
Mhm.
I think he put together a nice plan for us
Yeah.
on the DRI. Let him do his job, see how he does it. I don't think we should try to micromanage it. They're paid to do their jobs, both of them, and hopefully it works out, and I think it will,
Okay.
in my opinion. So.
Different item in here, question on the Learman.
Yes.
Is there a deadline for the property owner to say, I'm out?
That is a tricky question. I'm not the Department of State who makes kind of those, as I tried to lay out, basically if, I have officially informed the Department of State, my understanding that the person may not wanna go forward. I don't have anything in writing, I don't have anything specific saying it. So as of right now, officially, it's active, it's being developed, kind of a thing. They are going to reach out, to that developer and try and get his, let us know if you're developing or not developing and what you wanna do moving forward. And then, you know, there were some contingency components. The good news for everybody is we won't lose that money, right? That money, the 10 million is they want it spent in Oneida. It's not a use it or lose it like a lot of government programs are. This is, the money is already, you know, set for us, and we have to then follow the state's guidance to move it to another place. So they initially want to look for private first, because this is a combination of municipal and private. And thanks to Sturpey, one of the big pieces has already been taken care of. So, you know, and the state's actually very impressed that that was done so quickly. Then.
JD June's talking about.
Yes, yes.
Because that was an original approved project,
Correct.
yes,
Yep, thank
and
you.
it no longer has to be.
Right, it was originally on there. So we would move to projects that are currently on the approved project list, and, you know, kind of go from there, and, you know, we'll see what happens. I wish we could just take it and say, hey, let's throw it in over here, but they're very, and as far as time, how fast does New York State move? You know, I mean, it is, sometimes we'll hurry up and wait, give me this information right away, and then they'll get back to us. You know, I have monthly meetings with, you know, my contact, the project director for all of these, so it's one of the things that we'll, you know, continue to discuss. And whatever her guidance is what I follow, just like what I was trying to say before. Whatever the guidance is here, you guys all decide, that's what I do, that's my job.
And I apologize if my questions put you on the spot at all and it's not your capacity, but the lack of communication that I feel like we have sometimes is very frustrating. So I want us to be able to all talk about it. I always appreciate having a very open dialogue with you, Kyle, it's great. But so frequently, if there's emails or things that go around, it's crickets and it's frustrating. And so I don't know how else to initiate some of these conversations. They're really important, right? And we're all part of this. And I appreciate when I am able to reach out, speaking individually, it's great, everyone answers, it's wonderful, thank you. But I just wish we had a little more group discussion so we can all be on the same page before we, you know, so, anyway.
That's what council's gonna support.
That's why we're here, and thank you for sharing your.
Happy to answer any other, you guys, anything else?
When do we anticipate hearing back of some of the supplemental funding that you've applied for? Any idea on timelines?
Well, let's see, TAP would be at least 6 months, the NPR would be 8 or 9 months. Anything with the consolidated funding is decided in fiscal year 27, so that's at least a year out. We have the CHIPS money, you know, that's sitting there, we just have to allocate it for doing the Main Street. Am I forgetting any? I've been writing so many things in the last couple of weeks that it's hard to remember all of the parts, but I think those are the main ones.
I believe they're also gonna be doing the New York Swims grant.
Oh yeah, swims and,
Splash pad grant.
yes, but those haven't been released yet, so I haven't been able to dig into them yet. You know, it's like everything else with this project, like it'll be fantastic if certain things come in during certain components, but most of the feedback that I've been giving to CNS is, okay, these are great, give me the details and the plans on what 1.5 buys us, period.
Oh, so you're giving them the level, like,
Yes,
give us
if
this.
we get more
Yeah,
money, and
okay.
CNS has been amazing.
Okay.
That TAP grant was written by myself and CNS, and honestly, Sarah, I think, did more of the hard work. I just did a lot of reviewing feedback, here's some of the city components, you know, those kind of things. You know, so they've been a great partner with that. Actually with BNL and the comp plan and form-based code. Once we're, you know, 6 months to a year into the comp plan, then we will do the form-based code, and as long as we don't have any major issues, then I'll apply for a full grant to do that, probably in the consolidated funding for 2028. So we could look at doing that for the whole city, if the residents and council decide that that's what, you know, makes the most sense for the city. A lot of cities are adopting form-based code, but that doesn't mean that the Oneida wants to do that. But I don't have to make that decision, I just have to do the other parts.
Sure. It sounds like realistically, the streetscape may be the next thing we see done. Realistically,
Is
based
that
on.
this year?
I mean,
No.
Depends on the TAP funding.
Yeah.
right,
depends on funding,
I think
yes.
it's foolish for us to start digging up pavement until, you know,
Okay.
we have at least a better idea of funding with TAP. TAP could be a huge, you know, right now, if we had the I think it's 1.3, 1.5, I'm sorry, there's a lot of numbers, that's why I write all this down. And we add in the paving through CHIPS, you know, that gives us a great starting point. It would, and working on the trees, I forgot about the tree part too, so I had to follow up with him actually after I wrote this. You know, we're looking at $250,000 that's gonna come in and help with all this tree planting. That's amazing, that's gonna save our, you know, we could put more money into lights, or we could put more money into the ADA compliance on the sidewalks, things like that, so.
Yeah.
A lot of moving pieces, a lot of it's gonna be, is it coming in time, and how long can the community take
Hang in there.
additional delays? I'd hate to start digging up and then we get the money and then we have to pay for a whole bunch, you know, waste taxpayer dollars by, you know, redesigning everything, cause it's very, it's very tricky, there's a lot of moving pieces right now. Just
Absolutely.
juggling it the best we can.
Do you know when we could expect the 60% mark? I know several of them are at the 30%.
Yeah, so,
We just got to 30%.
yeah, that took months. That
Okay.
took months. So, especially with them knowing the funding components, we can push faster. But again, this is the you know, the rub here. If we're not going to lose the money, okay? So, but costs are going to continue to go up, right? Inflation continues to go up. Everything keeps getting more expensive. So, you know, it's going to be that how long do we wait on certain things and when do we pull the trigger on certain things. But really, I think letting. So I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. I would say in the next 3-4 months, we could
Okay,
push and
so
say.
months, not years.
Yes, definitely
Okay.
months. Oh, yeah, oh, definitely months, sir, yes. Anything else?
Do you wanna give just a brief rundown of AYSO? There's a lot of folks in the community that are interested in the field, soccer field, and
Oh,
other things out there.
Sure. So our plan is to install, or have installed, a whole bunch of soccer fields to become an area where young people can work with AYSO, which is, I guess, a club. My kids play club soccer, so I'm familiar with the club components. And it's right there in the flats where things were flooded. And the idea is to put in, you know, 8 or 9 fields, depending on how much we can afford. If I had a lot of money, I would say the best option would be to put in a turf field. That way schools and residents could use it during the winter too. You know, but I think that's probably wishful thinking unless anybody has a really rich uncle or something that would like to donate to kids soccer. You know, and then money is gonna go in or out depending on how far we can get on benches, you know. Best case scenario, right, all of this DRI is a lot of ideal versus actual and how we can make those two meet, right? So ideally, we'd love to have benches with covers so that the kids are sitting in the sun. We'd like to have, you know, good parking so that we don't have people parking up and down the street and causing, you know, I would like fences around the area because I don't want soccer balls going into the field, you know, into the road, things like that. But at this point, until we know the actual funding, we could be anywhere from 5 or 6 fields to, you know, 1 or 2 fields with a stone parking lot versus, you know, the Taj Mahal, so to speak, of what, you know, we've kind of seen in some of the designs. So, very excited about it, and, you know, I think the city has to decide what they want to do with it, if we're gonna rent it, or, you know, how we're gonna handle that side. That's for other folks to decide, but, you know, just getting that, getting those fields together and having kids the ability to be able to go every weekend or during the week, and they'll practice during the week, so it should be used a lot. And then depending on how that goes, you know, maybe there's ways that we can expand or other options we can do, and, you know, more youth sports in Oneida, I think, is a good thing.
What's the timetable on that?
So, back to the design phase, it would be, you know, probably a couple more months before we would get, that was actually the one that took the longest for designing, and I think that's because they have to be so strict and compliant with FEMA. So FEMA really dictates, in fact, it took, according to CNS, it took them a couple of months just to get the appointment with FEMA to be able to go through and do the review of, you know, some of the plans. So that's another governing body, I guess we could say, or another part that we have to take into account as we're kind of moving through. So hopefully 60, maybe in the next 3-4 months. I'd like to see them digging, you know, by the fall, but that's really wishful. I think that's really wishful thinking.
So we are working with FEMA though to understand.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing that we can put forward. In fact, the design, the 30% design that came through had to have FEMA's blessing on it. So, and there was 3 or 4 different variations of that. You know,
Took a tremendous amount of effort just to get approval, even considered doing this.
Yeah.
from FEMA. The initial response was no.
it would be awesome to have a bathroom there and, you know, a concession stand, things like that. But they may have to sit up off the ground, and they have to run with the flow of the water, that's another big thing. So everything that we're doing has to all run with the water or have certain things built into it, like wedges or all that kind of stuff, so.
I do think there is a good potential to have like a nice recreation area down there, whether, you know, including the AMRSO fields, because you can't do much else with it down there.
Right, yeah, soccer fields, whoever came up with that, the committee, that was smart thinking, for sure. What a great way to use that space.
I have one more question. At what point in the 30-60, is it 30-60-90%? Are those the stages, 30-60-90? Yeah, okay. At what point in there, I know that we have to demonstrate to New York that we have the funding to cover these projects and their contingencies in its entirety, right? At what point does not having that secure hold us back? Does that make sense?
There's been nothing that holds us back.
Okay, good. So they're still moving it through even though we don't have the funding
Everything
yet?
from Vets Park to the soccer
Okay.
fields. Again, I meet with Lissa every month. Every document that I get, she gets copies of. The state has to have regular updates, any project updates, all engineering. And if anything comes through that they disagree with, immediately they would let me know.
Okay.
But so far, they've been extremely happy with our progress now that, we're
Yeah, you
up
guys
and
are
running.
taking them all. So theoretically, you're applying for all this extra funding, that's moving, you're doing the 30-60-90, that's moving. This could all come together where everyone can have everything they want and everything that's important to them, and it will all be covered theoretically by the end of this, if we get all the
I mean,
funding?
So everything covered? I mean, no.
Well, I mean, what's in this
even with all the
project?
funding.
Yeah.
Even if we got
Yeah.
another couple million, or the plays grants or the swim grants comes through, or the MPR,
Mhm.
right? We're still gonna always be doing that ideal versus actual, right? What can we afford with the money we have?
Okay,
It's like, I don't know, it's like buying a car.
Yeah.
What can you afford? You get,
so the odds are that the end cost will be even beyond the contingencies that CNS kind of outlines, is
I
that
mean, I
usually
don't wanna
what
speak to
happens?
what will be,
Hypothetical, no.
As we get to closer to the 90% threshold, my experience in project management, we'll have a good funding source already identified.
Yeah.
At that point, we'll know what we're.
right, they wouldn't give us the 90 if they
That's what
don't
you
think that
told
we're.
me
Yeah.
before, I remember that.
So
Okay.
we'll know, so at that point, we'll know what to take out, what to put in, and at that point too, let's say we get nothing, then we do have to make some really tough decisions. Cause it's
Right.
gonna be a very bare bones.
Right,
That 10 mil is gonna go quick. They allocated $1,050,000 for downtown streetscape. The paving alone is 3 times that. So it's a problem. But when we get closer to design, we get 60%, we'll send it out for review, submissions, amendments, subtractions, whatever we wanna do. And then as we move closer to 90, we'll do the same thing again, get it out, have everybody review it, we can do updates again, have Steve come out, tell us where we're at. So really, it's really, the city should have been here a couple years back. We should, and I feel terrible that, a lot of people are frustrated, and I get it, I get it, but, we are doing everything we can at this time, including applying for every grant possible out there, to pursue these things and get them back online, and they are online, none of them have slipped now, so they're all on track, they're all moving forward, we're all in the design phase, we're getting comments, we're moving towards the 60%, we're getting the grants submitted now. My hope is by the time we move towards the 60%, maybe let's say in 5 months, we'll maybe have heard back about one of them, maybe, that'd be great, and by the time we move past that 60% threshold, we will know at that point whether the TAP and the PR is coming back to us.
Well, and with Hotel Oneida and the Devereaux, right, we have some concepts, but until they file their official pieces, we're regularly, can we please have an update? Can we please have an update? What's going on here? When I first started, Kyle walked me over my first week. This is Hotel Oneida. I've been coming over here every week, right? And so I started doing that after that. Every week I'd go over and, hey, anybody in here working? Are we taking things out? We do have a man on the inside who can tell me if things are moving sometimes, so that's nice. But, constantly moving towards and trying to stay on top of the developers too. For the private side, that's gonna get complicated in a few months too, so. Just a lot of moving pieces.
Any other questions for Steve?
thanks, Steve.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.